Hey boys and girls, so like I said last week, today is going to be a video introducing you to the reptiles of my animal family. Currently living with me is a crested gecko, a gold dust day gecko, a western hognose snake, 2 Asian vine snakes, 2 rough green snakes, and a special secret snake that you'll see at the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and that's enough. Here's the video. Okay, so first up is my crested gecko Mango. Let me take her out so you can First up is my crested gecko Mango. She was given to me by my friend Amanda, probably about a year ago. My favorite thing about Mango, the crested gecko, is, like I mentioned in a previous video, is that her favorite place to hang out is inside of some dang flowers. How cute is that, huh? Come here, sweetie. Getting her out of the flower is a whole nother thing. You'll notice, as with many crested geckos, she is missing her tail. That's just due to her being in enclosures with more aggressive crested geckos, maybe a male crested gecko that tried to get a little too feisty. This will almost always happen when you house 2 males together, and it will frequently happen when you house a male and a female together, but females and females are usually not aggressive towards each other, unless you have them in too small of an enclosure. And as far as enclosure size goes, I'd say the bare minimum should be about 20 gallons, and you can get a 20-gallon tank and flip it on its side vertically, kind of like I did with my stick insects over here. That one. Because they are arboreal animals. They love to climb, they love to jump around and walk around. You can see they're pretty dang active. I mean, they sleep during the day, and so a lot of the time, people see them just staying in one little corner of the enclosure, just one little hide, so they don't think they need too much space. But in reality, these guys are really, really active, especially at night. Something that I like to do when I'm up late at night is come down here and just use my phone flashlight so it's the only light in the room, and watch her crawl around in her enclosure, because she really does utilize all the space in this. This is an enclosure that my dad made for me like 10 years ago. And I've used it to house crested geckos, blue-tongued skinks. It's been a really great all-around enclosure for various animals. It has pond liner holding the substrate in place, and also as a backdrop. That way when I spray it, when I water the plants, all that humidity and moisture doesn't just seep into the wood or leave the enclosure. It stays in there. On the subject of substrate, what I use is first a layer of 3/4 inch stone at the bottom for drainage, then a layer of compost, which adds a lot of nutrients to the soil, and then a layer of topsoil or potting soil. That way I can have live plants in there, and it's also safe for her to climb around on and enjoy. And as far as live plants that I use, I have some pothos plant. That is my favorite live plant to use in terrariums. It's completely safe for the animals. It grows like crazy, and it's almost impossible to kill as long as you keep it moist. Also have a snake plant up here that is doing just okay. And I believe this is called a horsetail palm or a horsehair palm, one of those two. And of course a little bamboo here. I love bamboo as well for the same reason as the pothos. Is just it doesn't die. As long as you keep it wet, you're probably gonna have it last for a while. Now I have these bamboo sticks and the fake flower, of course, for her to explore, climb around on. These are very curious animals that love to utilize all the space that they have. I have some Mag Natural hides and a Mag Natural water dish and food dish holder. I love Mag Naturals. I think they're perfect, especially for crested geckos, because they stick right to the glass, but you don't have to worry about glue or anything like that if you want to ever move things around. With this species, it's very important to keep that humidity up. So what I do outside of spraying the enclosure every single day is I have a small pond in the corner, and it's actually a repurposed small beta tank. I think the things that they sell as beta tanks are way too small for any fish, but that's just my opinion. So I use them for other things like keeping bugs or using them as water dishes or ponds. As far as lighting goes, there's really not too much you have to worry about. They have a pretty good range of temperature where they're comfortable. During the winter, it can drop to the mid-60s and they're still perfectly happy at night. But ideally, during the day, you want temperatures of between 75 and 80, and at night, it can drop down to the low 70s and you're perfectly fine. So they don't really need a heat lamp, they just need to be in a warm part of your house. I just have 2 plant growing bulbs that I got at Home Depot up here just for the plant's sake. And also just to, show her off a little bit more. I love to give my animals, even if they don't require it, I love to give them lighting just so it stimulates their brain so they know the difference between daytime and nighttime, just like they would in the wild. As far as feeding goes, this is the fun part because they are frugivores / omnivores. This means that they mostly eat fruit, but they will also enjoy crickets, small roaches, mealworms, waxworms, etc. Even though I don't really like to use waxworms because they're very, very fatty and don't have that much nutritional value. but they're a good treat. What I use for a fruit mix to keep these guys happy and healthy is Pangea fruit mix. They have a bunch of different flavors. It's a little bit more on the expensive side, but it's absolutely worth it. Just a big bag of Pangea fruit mix will last you a while if you just have 1 or 2 Cresties. And the trick is, a lot of people don't know this, the trick is to mix the fruit mix with water until it's the consistency of ketchup. And that's how you know it's ready for them, because it will dry out a little bit overnight, and it just leaves the consistency for them to eat it, and it's not too watered down. Because when it's too watered down, it gets moldy much faster. And when it's too dry, it's hard for them to eat. So you gotta find that good balance. And of course, I also have a little water dish right next to it, just because I wanna have as much humidity as possible in here, and also a nice place for her to drink other than just the mist that she gets off the background and on the leaves. So that's Mango, my Crested Gecko. Now let's move on to my other gecko. Her name is Angel, and she's a gold dust day gecko, another one of my absolute favorite species. Let's go check her out. All right, so a gold dust day gecko is obviously a gay gecko. Did I really just say that? A gold dust day gecko is obviously a day gecko in the family Phelsuma, and they all pretty much get very similar care. Not identical care, but similar care. One major thing that they have in common is that they are extremely, extremely active. This is not an animal that will, ow. These guys cannot thrive in a small enclosure by any means. This is a lizard that gets to be between 4.5 to 5 inches long, maybe 6 inches long in some of the larger subspecies. So a cage like this is pretty much the bare minimum. As a matter of fact, I kind of wish it was bigger. But the female that I have in here, her name is Angel, and she is roughly 4 inches long. She's stayed pretty small, even though she's been eating like crazy. This is another amazing homemade enclosure that my dad designed and built. And inside of it, if we open this here, I always have to be super careful opening this enclosure because these are one of the fastest geckos out there. They're like lightning quick. They can be on the other side of the room in no time at all. So I gotta always kind of check, make sure she's not clinging onto the door, because I've made that mistake before. I open the door and she immediately kind of bolts, goes off onto the walls or onto the ceiling. And then getting her back in the enclosure is always the tough part. Because number one, they're extremely, extremely fast. And number two, they have very delicate skin. It's very thin and very soft and easily tearable. Also, like most gecko species, they can detach their tails if they're grabbed incorrectly. Luckily, their tails do regenerate and they look almost identical to the tails that were there before. So this setup is very much like the Crested Gecko enclosure. A lot of hiding spaces, a lot of fake plants, a real plant for humidity. The biggest difference is the heat. These guys need a basking spot of around 100 degrees and an ambient temperature overall of about 90. And they can thermoregulate themselves by getting closer or farther away from the top, so they need a vertical enclosure, much like the Crested Geckos do. Another big difference between the Gold Dust Day Gecko and the Crested Gecko is that these guys are much more omnivorous. They enjoy about 75% of their diet being protein, so bugs, and 25% of their diet being fruit mix. I use Pangea fruit mix for her as well, and she absolutely loves it. This video is not sponsored by Pangea, unless they want to give me money. But since the ambient temperature in the enclosure is so much higher, water evaporates much more quickly. So I mist her enclosure twice a day, make sure the substrate's nice and wet. I just have coconut fiber down there. And then I also have a little cup of water right here for her to drink. I'm really proud of this design right here because I couldn't fit a Mag Naturals food and water dish holder inside of an enclosure of this size. So what I did instead is I got a huge pack of Jello shot containers. I'm probably the only person who's ever used them for this purpose. And I hot glue gun them to the plexiglass door. What I do then is get another cup and put it inside of the cup that's glued into the enclosure. And that way I can take it out, clean it, put the food in. And if it gets like way too dirty or breaks or something, I can just replace it and not have to worry about opening up the tank for long periods of time every time I need to change out the food or water dish. One thing you'll notice here with a lot of my animals is that they have a lot of choices of places to hide. And there's a reason for that. It not only is better for their mental health, it lowers their stress and gives them more places to feel secure, but it also actually increases the likelihood of you seeing them. Because they'll usually pick like, 1 or 2 favorite spots to hang out, but they will frequently move between hiding spots so you can see them move around much more. Especially a diurnal species like this, who's active during the day and quiet at night when you are. So I have multiple pieces of cork bark. This is actually hooked up to the top of the enclosure and I can take it out. It's on a hook, so I can take it out and clean it and everything like that, then put it back. And I will frequently see her moving from like the bromeliad here with this Mag Naturals plant holder and behind this piece of cork bark, then up behind this piece of cork bark, and then she'll duck down to get some food and some water. And she's so fun to watch because she's so high energy. This species is so high energy, it blows my mind. Even when she doesn't know that I'm in the room, if she's just getting food real quick and going back to her hiding spot. She'll move lightning quick. They got places to be. They're always going fast. It's a lot of fun. Definitely not a species to take out and hold. Most members of the genus Phelsuma should not be taken out and held because, you know, like I said before, very delicate skin and very, very, very fast. That's all I got for lizards, so now let's move on to snakes. Okay, first snake I'm going to show you guys today is my Western Hognose snake, Chester. He is, if I'm not mistaken, about 6 months old, so he's still pretty small. And Western Hognose snakes do like to bury themselves, so I'm going to have to wreck his enclosure a little bit. There he is. Hey, big boy. So here he is. This is Chester. Western Hognose snakes are very, very common pet snakes, and for good reason. Like, a lot of people confuse common with boring, but that's definitely not the case with the hognose. They get their name Hognose from that adorable little nose, they got a little upturned shovel nose there, and they use that because they are a burrowing species, and in their natural habitat of western United States, they will use that to burrow into sandy soil. There's a heat mat on one side of the enclosure, and what that does is creates a temperature gradient. So there's a hot side and a cool side, and he can thermoregulate based on how he's feeling and what temperature he prefers. And in the wild, although these guys do live in semi-arid conditions, I always keep a fresh water bowl here for them. I have seen him drink, and it is adorable. And right now I have him on pinky mice. I give him 2 pinky mice a week. I prefer giving 2 small meals a week instead of just 1 big one. These snakes are total drama queens. They'll put on a big show if they feel threatened. They will huff and hiss and, you know, wag their head from side to side, and they'll do some fake striking at you. They will strike, but almost always with their mouth closed. When people get bit, it's usually because it was a feeding response that went wrong. They very rarely bite out of self-defense. So they'll thrash around and try and look all tough and big, and they'll puff out, and they'll flatten their necks like a cobra almost. It looks really cool when they're adults. It looks absolutely hilarious when they're babies. And then if all else fails, they roll onto their backs, stick their tongue out, and play dead. And I've never seen Chester do that. He's a pretty comfortable, calm dude. He's never struck at me. He's never shown any sense of aggression. He's very calm and relaxed. The only time he's tried to strike is whenever I put a food item in his enclosure. And I'm not saying strikes like a food response strikes. I'm saying like he strikes at it with his mouth closed because he thinks it's a threat. So feeding this guy is a bit of a challenge. I'm currently trying to switch him over from scented pinky mice to just plain frozen thawed pinky mice. And it's presenting a serious challenge. He is being very fussy and very picky, but hopefully that will change soon. Believe it or not, he is probably doubled in size since I got him probably around 4 months ago or so. And he's just amazing, man. I love him so much. Western Hognose, man. Awesome, awesome snakes. Great for beginners, and also just as fun for people with a little bit more experience. Alright, next up, these are 2 animals that really need no introduction. They're my favorite snakes on the planet, my favorite species to keep. Groot and Gamora, my Asian vine snakes. So before I take them out, just a quick overview of the enclosure. This bad boy is 6 feet tall, 5 feet wide, 4 feet deep. It's a corner cage, a lot like the day gecko enclosure that's over there. I designed this enclosure specifically for my Asian vine snakes. They were actually in the Crested Gecko's old enclosure before they were in this, and that just, it wasn't good enough for me. So this was a Christmas present from my dad, like I've said before. He built it for me after I told him kind of the idea that I wanted, and I showed him my design for it. Just like the Crested Gecko enclosure, we have pond liner all on the sides here on the back. This retains all the humidity and keeps all the water in. We have a live hibiscus plant on one side of the enclosure. It's thriving in here. And the other half is this beautiful pond that has some bamboo shoots growing out of it to, you know, keep the water circulating and clean. And of course I do add water as it evaporates and clean it out when it gets too dirty. But this pond not only provides them with water, but it releases a huge amount of humidity because it's a very hot enclosure. I keep this at around 100 degrees in the basking spot and 90 degrees ambient temperature. And that means that the water will evaporate quickly and keep that humidity up. And along with that, I also mist the enclosure every single day just because this is a very humidity-dependent species and a heat-dependent species. They have a great vertical temperature gradient with bamboo shoots and sticks and branches and fake plants. The lights are actually hidden up here in this really cool secret compartment. I can get in there and access them if I need to and change out the bulbs. Up there I have a ceramic heat emitting bulb, which doesn't produce light, but it produces more heat than any other bulb. It's a personal favorite of mine. And also a blue daylight bulb, just to simulate basking a little bit more naturally. Also a UV strip, which provides them with ultraviolet light and also helps the plants grow. So now let me take these two out. Their names are Groot and Gamora. Groot is my male. Gamora is my female. If you guys remember, Groot used to be a bit of a problem child for me. He was a little bit aggressive, and he still kind of is, but we're getting better. We're slowly becoming friends. It's okay, buddy. Let go for me. You know what? I'm so sorry. He just ate yesterday. I'm wondering, why is he being so aggressive? He's digesting, and now I feel dumb. Always give your snakes between 12 and 24 hours after they eat before handling them. I'm so sorry, my friend. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Let me grab Gamora, if you don't mind. Can I get past you without you striking at me? I've never been envenomated by an Asian vine snake. I've kept these guys for years, and I have never once taken a bite. I've come close, especially with Groot, but I've never taken a bite. What do you think, pretty girl? What do you think? Oh. You big goof. She's a little bit more flighty than he is, but generally much less aggressive. Where are you going? Come here. Oh, you got yourself all knotted up. Now you're all wet because you went in the pond. Shh. There you go. Good girl. Look at how beautiful she is. She's a little bit upset with me right now, so she's showing that black and white checkered pattern under her skin. And let me get another frame actually so it'll focus on her. What a absolutely beautiful animal. Just the way they look alone is enough to make me fall in love with them, but more than anything, it's their personality. They are so intelligent, it blows my mind. This is a snake that looks you right in the eye when you're looking at it. And there's normally that, you know, little trick with, whoa, hey, with, whoa, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, hey, where you can try and wave your hands around and kind of distract the snake that's trying to strike at you, and that doesn't work with these guys. They're too smart. They know your face is here, this is where I want to bite you. But she's a little upset with me. I interrupted her, she fell into her pond, she's embarrassed, and now I'm getting striked at. This is an interesting behavior. I'm not sure how well focused it is on her right now, but really interesting thing. I don't know if I should even call it a defense mechanism, but something they do when they feel threatened is stick their tongue out and just leave it there. It's very bizarre, and I believe it's to help imitate a leaf, because that's the big thing, is they're amazing at camouflage. They blend in with vines very well, why their name is vine snakes, and their head is shaped like a thin leaf, and I think that that tongue poking out is supposed to imitate a stem. I'm not sure about that, but it's my guess. They have these really beautiful kind of keyhole-shaped pupils, and those horizontal pupils are a telltale sign that they are an arboreal hunter. These guys eat almost exclusively lizards and frogs. Anoles are what I feed them here. And that's the main reason why they're not more popular in the pet trade, is because, frankly, they're such picky eaters. Are you gonna strike at me while you're on me? Don't do this, we're friends. I was focusing too much on the frame when I was filming, and not enough on how to take her out without her feeling uncomfortable. So that's my bad. But I think we'll move past it. She's a good girl. A question that I get asked very often, because if you'll notice I have a male and a female, and males and females exist to do one thing, and that is produce offspring. And people ask me all the time, why don't I breed these snakes? A couple of reasons. One, they're very hard to breed in captivity. Very few people have successfully done it, especially here in the United States. Although, I have walked in on these two locked up, so I have seen them having sex. They have mated successfully, but she has not produced any babies, and I would know pretty quickly. I believe that the snakes are born, they're live bearers, and I believe the babies come out between 3 and 6 months after mating occurs. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure that's the correct amount of time. But thankfully, it was an unsuccessful pairing, and no babies were produced. And the reason I'm not trying to get babies, and I really don't want baby Asian vine snakes, is because that would mean I had to get baby anoles, or very small anoles, or small geckos, and that's not something I can afford right now. And also, I don't trust a lot of people with their care, because their care is so specific, and they need so much room and so much humidity, and they have such a specific diet. There's not a lot of people I would trust to care for a baby Asian vine snake. I'll let her go back. There you go, hon. So selling the babies would be very tough for me. I'd have to really do a lot of research on the person that I was giving them to. And more than likely, that's what I'd end up doing if I did eventually get babies unintentionally. I don't think I'd be selling them. I'd probably be giving them to zoos or places like that. All right, this is another favorite species of mine. You hear me say that a lot. The rough green snake. These guys are native to the southeastern United States, and they are an absolute pleasure to have. They're so active, they're diurnal, so they're always moving around during the day, always exploring their environment, always hunting. And what's really great about rough green snakes is the fact that they're insectivores. They only eat insects their entire lives. I personally keep these guys on a diet of dusted crickets, and they have pretty high metabolism, so I throw in 3 or 4 crickets per snake every other day. That way the crickets can, hide in the enclosure. There's plenty of little crevices and cracks where they can slip into. And then when they come and show themselves, the snakes can hunt them. So it kind of simulates their natural environment a little bit. And I've modeled this enclosure after kind of a Florida landscape. There's pieces of driftwood here, some branches jutting out. The substrate is a mix of sand and coconut husk. It retains moisture very well, and that's good because these guys thrive with high humidity. That's why there's also a little pond there that they can... I've never seen them actually go and soak themselves, but I have seen them dip their heads in and drink. I also miss the enclosure every day. There's some live pothos plants here that are thriving, and 2 large fake leaves there just to provide a little bit of shade and some cover and a hiding space. There's a small hide here that I've never seen them use, but I keep it in there just as another place for them to get away if they don't feel like being watched. I consider these guys semi-arboreal because they spend a lot of their time on the ground, but also a lot of time climbing around on these branches and climbing up on the logs. Just like the Asian vine snakes, I have 3 different lights up here. I have the ceramic heat emitting bulb, which gives off no light, the blue daylight bulb, and a UVB emitting bulb. This is one of those special species of snake that actually requires UVB light in order to grow and live healthy lives. It's not a snake that I'd recommend for beginners, and it's ironic because usually when you see them in pet stores, they're being sold for like $10 each, and the customer service people will tell you, just get a critter keeper and it'll stay there its entire life, it'll be fine. And that's just not the case. These guys need a lot of room to roam around, they need climbing area, they need all these different types of light, they need high humidity, they need crickets, which is the easy part, and they really don't like being handled. On the few occasions that I've picked these guys up because I was moving them into a bigger enclosure or I was cleaning, they have musked on me and defecated on me and all that, and just always squirming around trying to get away. Very uncomfortable with being held. So I just kind of leave them be. I don't hold them too much unless I absolutely have to. They never bite though, which is interesting. They've never once struck at me, never even opened their mouths. When these guys are full grown, they're going to be about 1.5 to 2 feet long at the absolute max. They would probably be able to live happily in this 30-gallon tank their entire lives, but knowing me, I'll probably move them into something bigger when they get to their full size. Alright, so I have just one more animal I really want to show you guys, and it's a snake that I've wanted for so long, and I'm so happy that I finally have it. Very special shout out to my friend Casson for giving him to me. Alright, so in this 10-gallon enclosure is a snake that I have loved and I have admired for so long, and I finally have one in my animal family, and I can't tell you how happy that makes me. Let me get him out so I can show you. Stop teasing me about it. I've posted a picture of him on Instagram, so a lot of you probably already know what he is. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an olive house snake. What an absolutely beautiful, beautiful animal. These guys are native to one of my favorite places, which is South Africa. This is probably as big as he's gonna get, whereas a female can get maybe double this size. But his colors are just so beautiful, and he's such a sweetheart. I'm getting kisses. This is for sure the friendliest snake that I've ever owned, and one of the friendliest snakes that I've ever had the pleasure of encountering. Just absolutely zero aggression. Even when he feeds, he doesn't even strike at the pinky that I give him. He just, hi buddy. He just kind of like slowly opens his mouth and takes it and slowly backs back into his hide. Just very polite. Who do you think's calling me? I'm really at a loss for words. This is one of my new... Who was calling me? I'm in the middle of filming right now, so can I call you back in like 20 minutes? A lot of people have probably heard of the African house snake, which is a close relative of the olive house snake, found in the same area. It has very similar care. The only thing is that these guys are a little bit more tropical. They like higher humidity, which is why I have this awesome Reptiles soil here, and then a big water dish and some live pothos plants. So it keeps that humidity up and is, just looks nice. It's more natural. I like it. Care for these guys is pretty straightforward. They're nocturnal. They like to have a hot side and a cool side, and that's pretty much it. Like it's. I have no doubt in my mind that house snakes are going to be huge in the pet trade within the next 10 years because they're just so easy to care for, so easy to breed in captivity, and there is no good reason as to why everyone doesn't own a house snake right now. Olive house snakes are much more rare than the common brown house snakes, but I'm sure they're going to pop up more and more as people get into them. And hopefully someday I'll find a female so I can try and breed these guys. I've never bred a snake before, but this has to be my first. And I've heard it's extremely easy to do, so maybe someday when I find a female. But for now, I'm very happy to have my new friend living with us. His name is Louie, and I love him so much. Clearly, he loves me very much as well. He's so curious and friendly and just overall amazing. Zero fear of people whatsoever. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. A couple of things before I go. I am gonna host a little competition. This one's for all you graphic designers out there. I need a new logo for 5 Weird Animal Facts, my show on Animal Bites TV. And I want you to email me your submissions to jasonmillervlogs@gmail.com, and I'm going to go through them and pick a winner, and that winner will get a special shout out in the vlog after I pick that winner. Be creative. I'm going to give you 0 guidelines, just run with it. The other thing is, in vlog number 2, the Q&A, you guys really dug the Australian hip-hop songs that I recommended, so I think every week from now on I'm going to do a weekly Aussie hip-hop recommendation. This week it's going to be a song called Got Love by Fundamentals featuring Solo. I'll leave a link to that in the description, and I'll leave an annotation right here. So make sure to check that out. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. New videos every Thursday, and new 5 Weird Animal Facts every Monday. Subscribe to everything, and like and share and all that. Bye-bye.